going on crusade and can't find a dog sitter. Wife sick of finding entrails in her bed. Children won't stop crying at your large ugly hound. Other men won't stop coveting your beautiful graceful hound. Just sick of all these hounds. Then take them to the Weird Medieval Guys Kennel Service Incorporated. We offer round-the-clock care for your pooch, including plenty of space to play, all the offal that the butcher throws away, and a small abused child to live with them 24/7. Not convinced? Then listen to these testimonials.
My dogs, Steadfast, Steakfast, and Stickfoot, wouldn't stop pissing on my baby. I had to do something with them, so I took him to Weird Medieval Guys Kennel Services Incorporated. Now, my baby is piss-free. Although without the dogs, he does have to work full-time as a spit turner. Oi, baby, run faster! That spit ain't gonna turn itself! Olivia and Aran told me that they had sweetmeats and pigeon pies in their cart, but when I climbed in, it was just full of hounds. They pissed on me, and now I think they've adopted me as one of their own. Every time I try to leave, the Weird Medieval Guys Kennel Services Incorporated people take a big stick and they grab me and then...
How did you get in the recording studio? Get out of here and get back to mucking out those kennels.
Oh, dearie me. I missed me mom and dad.
Weird Medieval Guys Kennel Services Incorporated. Book now and receive a free abused 8-year-old boy. Seriously, take him off our hands. He's useless.
Please, I just want to see the sunlight one more time before I die.
The feast is o'er. Now brimming wine in lordly cup is seen to shine before each eager guest. And silence fills the crowded hall, as deep as when the herald's call thrills in the loyal breast.
Welcome back to the Weird Medieval Guys podcast. Today, we're talking all about medieval pets.
Woof. That was my incredible dog impression.
It's like there's a dog in the room with me.
I got that dog in me, so that is accurate, yeah.
Is that why you're always panting and slobbering? And,
yes. Yes. It's definitely not anything else. It's definitely not rabies. My holiday was fine, thank you.
I heard it was great. I heard you touched a lot of bats.
Oh man, I got to go to this really cool zoo where they let you stroke all the bats.
They let you kiss the bats on the mouth.
Yeah, it was very erotic actually. Let's make no bones about it. This is gonna be the best episode of the podcast yet.
I think we have some tales to tell.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think we are going to be talking about a lot of very interesting history, because cats hiss.
Oh, they do, yeah.
Bada bing, bada boom. Okay, no, I'm not. I can't be on this shit yet.
One of us has to be the straight man.
Well, I mean, one of us is a straight man, so
Whoa.
I feel like that's,
Listen, this podcast is 25% gay and 50% Jewish. We're very intersectional.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and I think it's 50% American.
Yeah, I feel like when you add, there's very complicated fractions that happen.
I feel like maybe I'm 2/3 American.
Yeah, you've got more American than I do a little bit.
Yeah,
it's 10, maybe 10% more.
Well, yeah, I have the 2 Yankee parents.
Because I was extracted from the wild at an earlier age and placed
true.
in I was placed in captivity slightly earlier than you.
You were domesticated.
Yes, I was domesticated.
So, I think the most important question to address is, did medieval people have pets? Because if they didn't, this is going to be a pretty short podcast, which could be nice. Clock off.
You want to go to the pub?
Yeah, I do. I actually really do.
It's been one of those weeks, huh? Yeah, so they did. We know they did because they wrote about it constantly. And much like us, medieval people had weird sort of anthropomorphizing relationships with the animals that they lived with.
They did. There's so many charming accounts that I think are so deeply reflective of a relationship that they had with their pets that's very, very similar to the ones that many of us have now. Now, that's not to say that they had the exact same conception of how animals fit into human space as we do, because I think they were a little bit more practically oriented.
Yeah, these animals have got jods. Full-time jods.
Yeah. A lot of them were working animals. So, I mean, I think, so for instance, cats, of course, being used as mousers is the quintessential example. Terriers, small dogs were also used for the same purpose, but the list really goes on, doesn't it?
There's lots of things that animals are better at doing than people are, which is why we have archaeological evidence of, for example, sort of early domesticated wolves living in human settlements as far back as 14,000 BC.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That I did not know. Yeah, and how exactly these relationships began in the first place is a bit beyond the scope of our podcast. Also something that we will probably never know with complete certainty.
This is a history podcast, and that's prehistory.
Yeah, exactly. But I think one thing that's interesting to touch upon is the fact that the word pet itself is not actually, is a post-medieval addition to the English language. And before we had that word, there wasn't really a specific word that people used for animal companions. They didn't really make the distinction between, for instance, domesticated animals versus, tame ones that you might just sort of capture in the wild. They just, there's a lot of references to, what animals one might own.
Mm-hmm. And there were people who owned animals that were not practical working animals. What we might call, like, a lot of scholars don't really like the term pets because it's not very precise. They prefer the term companion animals as opposed to animals that have a specific job in the home, like, a sheepdog. The word pet sort of shows up for the first time in sort of around 1500, so after the Middle Ages, in northern dialects of English and in Scots. It's a little bit disputed what the derivation of the word is. I think the root word, pretty much people agree, the root word is a loan from the French petit, which means small, and is just in general a term of sort of endearment. Which I'm pretty sure is the reason why you might, if you go up to Yorkshire, you get called all pet.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it may also come from the Scottish Gaelic word peta, which it's itself derived from the French word petit. So basically, it's a slightly more long-winded way to get to the same answer.
Yeah, but, nevertheless, I think it is, when you read sources about animals in the pre-modern world, especially sources about dogs and cats, I do think the relationships that you hear about are so striking, because they clearly do have a lot of cultural weight and cultural impact that speaks to the personal relationships that people had with these animals. And that goes back way pre-medieval. I mean, in ancient Rome as well, there's many, many depictions in sculpture and decorative arts.
So here are some fun classical references to dogs and cats in pre-medieval culture. So in the Odyssey, when Odysseus returns home looking like shit, who's the only person who recognizes him? His dog Argus. Oh, here's a Jewish one. The Talmud recommends the Jews should respect dogs because when the Jews escaped Egypt, the dogs didn't bark. So I like the idea of like a 6th century rabbi being like, these are our boys. In Peru, archaeologists have found cemeteries where the early Chiribaya people buried their dogs with blankets and even food in the same way that they buried humans. Although, even today, different cultures have different norms about, keeping animals in the home or whatever, and that shouldn't be minimalized. Like, there is a common thread here that's much older than the medieval period that just, like, these guys are cool and they're our friends.
Yeah. So yeah, apart from dogs, what kinds of animals are medieval people hanging out with?
Well, I mean, aside from livestock, obviously, it's mostly cats and birds. Dogs, cats, and birds. We're not going to talk much about birds. There's not much to say. As with birds today, they're not that interesting.
Whoa.
No, it's fine. I don't mind birds. They're all right.
Fair. I mean, I think, yeah, dogs and cats are, I think, the really big ones we will be talking about. And there were all sorts of different animals that medieval people might keep around. I mean, there were stories of monarchs who had these vast menageries. There were elephants, fully like elephants in England in the Middle Ages, just hanging out in someone's menagerie.
This isn't quite medieval, but literally last night, as we were recording this, I went to the very good Mughals exhibition in the V&A, which had a wonderful classical Islamic painting of a turkey, which is famously American, that had been brought over to the court of the Mughal emperor. That's just like, check this shit out. Look out this weird bird.
Yeah, exactly. But those aren't animals that we're going to be focusing on in this episode. Because I think what we're really interested in getting at is these like deeply personal relationships.
That are embedded in day-to-day life as well, not just in like the performances of power.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We're going to be talking about cats and dogs this episode. Let's do them sequentially. Let's talk about dogs first.
Yeah.
On gentle Norman, Prince of Roland, there is his girl who dies on the field. Blessed and all of it, here and hereafter, living in death the man who scorns to yield.
So, one thing that I think is particularly striking about the Middle Ages is the fact that it is the genesis of quite a few recognizable dog breeds of today.
Well, they love their greyhounds.
They absolutely loved their greyhounds, and greyhounds are, I think, one of the most historically attested dog breeds. I mean, we have depictions of greyhounds from ancient Rome. We even have depictions of Italian greyhounds, the really small ones.
Yes, the ones with the little tiny legs.
Yeah, the little spindly boys. So yeah.
I think that I did see a very interesting theory when I was researching this episode, that one of the reasons why medieval people loved greyhounds is because they fit so perfectly with the medieval sort of artistic traditions, because they're just so bendy and twisty.
Yeah.
They're all just pointy edges that you can twist around.
They are. I mean, they just look like if God made a dog, he would make the greyhound like that. When I see a greyhound, aesthetically speaking, like, they are flawless.
Oh, they're gorgeous. And you know that when they do that thing when they like you, which is they lean against you. They walk up to you and then they lean.
Yeah. I know, they aren't, honestly, like, they do feel like proof of intelligent creation.
Well, I'd hope so, because we created them.
Yeah, well, exactly, yeah, exactly.
No, but like, yeah, they're also very ethereal, because they don't talk really much at all. They just sort of look at you inquisitively.
Yeah, there's something very, I don't know, something feels very, I don't know, symbolic about like the way they're capable of great speed, but only when they deem it fit, and they can only sustain this like burst of speed for a short period.
Oh yeah, they're very lazy.
Like, yeah.
They're not high energy dogs at all.
No, they're not. I love greyhounds.
So do you know that greyhounds are actually the first dog breed mentioned in English literature? Because they're shouted out in the Canterbury Tales. Because it says in the description of the monk, who loves hunting and riding,
Classic.
It says, "Therefore he was a rider day and night. Greyhounds he had, as fast as a bird in flight, since riding and the love of the hare were all his love, for no cost would he spare." So he spends an outrageous amount of money on greyhounds.
There you go.
There you go. Many such cases. They've also got spaniels.
Yes, so depictions of spaniels, especially later on in the Middle Ages, you get them a lot in medieval art. There's one instance of a Flemish artist in the 15th century who puts a lot of dogs in his scenes that he illustrates for medieval manuscripts. And it's oftentimes the same red and white spotted spaniel.
Oh.
And it is even included in a self-portrait he does in one of them, sleeping at his feet.
Oh.
But it's also like, this dog is at the crucifixion, this dog is at the Annunciation.
And that dog's name? Wishbone.
So yeah, we'll never know for sure, but to me, looking at this, it feels like an example of someone, an artist, immortalizing his dog in his art.
Yeah, it's like, that's my boy.
That's my boy. Yeah, and we have attestations of quite a few of these dog breeds from various medieval texts. There's quite a lot that was written about dogs, as it turns out. And in the 15th century, one specific man whose name will be coming up a lot, because this guy wrote a lot about dogs. You don't even know the half of it, or maybe you do. Edward, 2nd Duke of York. And he writes about several dog breeds, including the Spaniel. I can even give a couple things that he says about greyhounds. And he even mentions greyhounds, for instance. He says that the best color for greyhounds is red with a black muzzle, which is pretty cool. Sounds like someone's fursona.
Sorry.
And he says that he talks a lot about like what makes a good dog. So he says a good greyhound should go so fast that he can overtake any beast, and there where he overtakes it, he should seize it where he can get it at the soonest. A greyhound should be swift and have that killer instinct, but he also says that he should be good and kindly and clean, glad and joyful and playful, well-willing and goodly to all manner of folks, save to the wild beasts, to whom he should be fierce and spiteful. And so this is a great source because we're already drawing out some information about what these different types of dogs were used for. So a greyhound is a great dog for pursuing prey on a hunt. And as for spaniels, he says, first of all, they're from Spain.
Wow.
So he says that spaniels are really good for if you're going out hunting with your hawks. So they're less kind of precise predators than greyhounds in this man's conception. So he says they're great for just sending them out into the bushes to scare up birds that you can then, get with your bow and arrow or with your hunting hawk. And so he basically just says that, a good spaniel should be eager and, always be like willing to bark and kick up a fuss.
They do be like that. You met a spaniel? They're so loud.
Yeah, we had a spaniel.
Really?
When I was a child. It was one of the dumbest dogs in the world, but very sweet. And loved to bark.
Yeah.
And we've got mastiffs as well. And so the Duke specifies that the mastiff's nature and his office is to keep his master's beasts and his master's house. And it is a good kind of hound, for they keep and defend with all their power all their master's goods. So this is a guard dog. He says, they be of a churlish nature and ugly shape. But they have their uses, apparently.
I have a great quote from the writer John Caius about mastiffs, which is slightly less positive. He's very mean about mastiffs. He says, they are vast, huge, stubborn, ugly, and eager. A heavy and burthenous body, terrible and frightful to behold. And more fierce and fell than any Arcadian cur, violent and valiant, striking could fear into the hearts of men, but standing in fear of no man, insomuch that no weapons will make him shrink. So the consensus is they're brave, but big, ugly, and stupid. I don't know why I gave him a West Country accent. There's something about like Middle English that reads to me as West Country.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think it was much more rhotic than modern English in England is. In fact, I think with every passing year, it's agreed that people in England are pronouncing their R's less and less.
And it's insufferable.
Yeah, I know.
I'll never give in.
Good. Yeah, because people will, yeah, I know. It's just feeding into, like, it's marginalizing rhotic accents, which I think is sad. You know, people who pronounce their R's, Americans, people from the West Country, like, we're some of the most oppressed people in the world.
It's true. So not only did they have dogs that we have now, but they also had types of dogs that we don't have now.
The secret dogs.
The secret forbidden dogs.
Yeah.
So let's hear about some forbidden dogs. So the first one that I have here is the Talbot or St. Hubert's Hound, which is an extinct hunting dog. It's like a big white beagle. We know nothing about it except for some depictions in art. Not much to say about the St. Hubert's Hound, sadly. What I have much more to say about is the Alants.
Yes, that is one that is mentioned all the time.
Yeah, so they are it's an extinct kind of mastiff. Gaston Phobos, the master huntsman, distinguished between 3 types of Alants. So the first of these are the Alant gentil. These are good. We like these ones.
Yeah.
They're chill. However, they do tend to maul other dogs and humans. But other than that, they're cool. Then we have the Alant de Bougerie, which is a low-class dog, but still useful. And I've got an extended quote about the Alant de Bougerie. Every day in towns, you can see Alant de Bougerie, which butchers keep to help them to drive the animals that they buy in the countryside. Because if a bull escapes from the butcher who is leading it, his dog can seize and detain it until his master arrives, and then help him herd it back to town. And they cost little to keep because they eat the offal from slaughterhouses. And they're also good for guarding their master's home and are good at hunting bears and boars when they are led by greyhounds and coursers.
Yeah, so this is
Teamwork.
like a real, like, Swiss Army knife of a dog. It's like, this is like your, dog of all trades.
Yes. The last one is the Alant Vautaire. And these are churlish and servile.
Aww.
And the quote that he has here, it's so good. He's like, these are not dogs about which one should say much.
Wow. Scathing.
Brutal. There's another extinct type of dog, which is Molossi.
Whoa.
Do you know about Molossi?
I actually do not.
So Molossi, they're supposedly from like ancient Athens. And then I think medieval people probably just named a type of mastiff this.
Yeah.
These actually are the XL bullies of their day because they had to be like very strongly regulated. So, for example, in 1367, the rulers of the town of Beverly imposed a fine of 40 shillings upon anyone whose dog wandered the streets or mauled another's dog. And in 1494, no fewer than 27 people were accused of allowing their molossi to run loose without muzzles. And now, so John, returning to my friend John Caius, he says he has a much more sort of neutral description of them. He says that they're stout, strong, and sturdy. I am imagining a sort of just big, beefy dog.
Yeah, I think so. And even if not all of these dogs were recognized as distinct breeds, we also have a lot of evidence of just general jobs that dogs had. So herding is a big one.
Dog-jawed.
So yeah, herding is a big one. Catching rats as well. Terriers date back to the Middle Ages. Although the name terrier wasn't seen until around the 15th century. There were even dogs that were used to turn the spit of meat over your fire, which is kind of crazy. It's also it sounds so whimsical when you hear about it, but then it's actually quite sad. Because they'd put these dogs in these, massive sort of hamster wheels that threw, that were connected to the spit to turn it, and the dog would just have to run around for hours on end. And there's all of these, quite sad stories about, the dogs would just be forced to run and run and run, and they'd have a piece of meat dangling in front of them that they couldn't get. It's definitely probably not sort of compatible with modern ideas of animal welfare, which is probably why we don't do that anymore.
And this is why I think one of the big differences between medieval life and modern life is that in modern urban life, you don't see a lot of working dogs in cities. But when you picture a medieval town or city, You should imagine just rogue dogs.
Yeah.
It's like Istanbul over there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Just like there'd just be dogs just sitting on the street, and they would look at you, and you would look at them, and you'd be like, I'm gonna cross the road.
The dog is like, hey, buddy.
No, seriously, like the dogs, shout out to all the Turkish listeners, because those dogs are frightening.
Oh,
They look like they weigh, I mean, most of them are probably fine, but they look like they weigh as much as me, and they look like they would eat me, and I can't identify what breed they are.
Many of them are quite mangy as well.
Yes, they're very mangy.
Yeah, that's
but like
sad.
they'll just be they're very chill. They'll just be lying there on the street, and everyone will just walk around them. And that's what you should picture.
Nice.
And not all these dogs are unemployed, but like, my point is there's just a lot of ambient dog stuff happening. Unstructured dog behavior.
Aphex Twin selected ambient dogs. And I think if we are talking about different relationships, about ways in which the relationships that people had with their pets were different then to how they are now, I think that sort of compartmentalization of animals, and especially dogs, into like beloved hunting dogs, churlish, useless brutes, and then like some in the middle is a big one, because you can see that like a lot of these working dogs were not really they didn't have this like modern conception of like, all dogs are good boys. Like a lot of them could kind of just
No, some might say there was a dog class system. And that shows up in books like John Caius's Of English Doggers. Which some might say, oh, that's not really medieval. Whatever. He's drawing on medieval ideas here. This is this book is very, very, very early modern. So it's basically medieval. Don't at me. I love this image that I have of our listeners, where it's like a bunch of people who know about John Caius's Of English Dogs and wants to give me shit about it being technically Tudor.
Fingers like hovering over the keys.
Oh yeah, because there's no chance that people on the internet would be pointlessly pedantic. So a dog's status in human society is determined by their job, or in the language of the time, office. So we're gonna go down the pecking order of dogs. So top of the list.
Well, the biting order.
Yes, that's good. I like that. So top of the list is hunting dogs and gentle lap dogs. So these are again like the dogs of the nobility. They're decorative mostly.
Yeah, and it should not necessarily surprise us that we will find parallels between the dog class system and the human class system.
Yes. And then we get the second kind of class of dogs, is just like, just ordinary working dogs. The kind of dogs that we've just been talking about. And as in the article that I drew a lot of these examples from. I love this quote. The canine equivalent of artisans and journeymen.
Yeah, no, because you can imagine there being like a real pastoral dignity in being like a sheepdog,
So last of all, you have dogs of, and I'm quoting John Caius here, the mongrel and rascal sort, who are notable for their failure to exercise any worthy property of the true and perfect and gentle kind. And these dogs might have a job as a turnspit dog. It's fascinating the way that this social structure for dogs mirrors human social structure. It's like, yeah, if you do a crap job, you're probably a bad person. Is like deep. It's rooted deep in our psyche.
Oh yes,
it's bad. Although I will say he does have nice things to say about the work of the turnspit dog, because he says, they go round about with the weight of their bodies so diligently that no drudge nor scullion could do the feat more cunningly.
Aww.
But bottom of the list are the mongrel dogs that have to beg for their meat by performing tricks and so on. Which again, like, there is parallels to, you might say, like, the way that, beggars or homeless people are being treated in society. If you're a dog, if you're just like a street dog that's just walking around, you are free to be abused.
Yes, absolutely.
And he says that these are midden dogs, trindle tykes, and Prickard Curries, and this is the point at which my Middle English gives up on me.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, and it's by nature of by virtue of the fact that the aristocracy and wealthy people were the people who were reading and writing. It is mostly through their eyes and their words that we have accounts of dogs. And mostly they were very interested in writing about their own dogs, the noble dogs, the hunting dogs. And so we have extensive works about that.
That's right, because just like modern people today, people in the Middle Ages thought their dog was the most interesting dog that's ever lived.
Yep.
I am not above this.
Well, you do have the most interesting dog that's ever lived.
We love Bonnie, folks.
Yeah.
She's the best. She's just, okay, quick Bonnie sidebar, because I'm sure everybody's wondering. Bonnie is a big, elderly golden retriever who is, I mean, she charms the socks off of everybody who meets her.
Absolutely, yeah.
What's your impression of her?
She is like a benevolent, ambulatory shag carpet with a long-suffering, understanding look in her eyes. And you know, the ability to pick up any small animal in her jaws without hurting it.
Yeah, no, she once picked up a guinea pig and carried it around the garden and then put it down completely unharmed. Deeply traumatized, but completely unharmed.
That's the retriever instincts.
Yeah.
You know, she was retrieving it.
No, like they have those golden jaws.
Yeah.
And they can unhinge them as well, which is
Yeah.
very frightening. I've never seen her do that. But yeah, we love Bonnie, folks.
We love Bonnie. We do love Bonnie. And so, yeah, one of the sources that I'm going to be drawing on very heavily is Edward, Duke of York's book, The Master of Game, which is mostly, it's actually quite unfair that it gets attributed to him because mostly a translation of Gaston Phoebus's earlier work, but he was the first person to put down all of these thoughts in English, and he did add on a few fun little appendices to it, so...
Also, it's equally unfortunate that it has that title because that does sound so much like a red pill book.
Yeah, I know.
Like it's the kind of book that ends with a QR code for a podcast and another QR code for like erection supplements.
Yeah, oh god. Pickup tips: how to increase your alpha male aura.
I mean, some might say that is what he's doing.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And so this is, again, a 14th century book, and it's all about hunting, but because dogs were such an important part of hunting, quite a bit of it is about dogs. And so he goes into amazing detail about not just the dog breeds and their natures that I've mentioned, but also, and, you know, all of these, like, just highly... I actually really like the chapter titles. So you have chapters like How a Good Hunter Should Go in Quest to Hear the Heart's Bellow.
Wow. So far, so red-pilled.
Yeah, no, exactly. How a Man Should Know a Great Heart by the Place Where He Hath Frayed His Head.
Whoa.
Etc. And... as I said, he goes into great detail about dogs. One of the things that he touches on quite a bit that is very, very endearing to me is he talks a lot about dog care and how you should be taking good care of your dog. So he talks about dog illnesses. He talks about when it's time to call the doctor. But and he talks about... he has, like, extensive things about, like, where the dogs should live, the kennel for the dogs. So he goes on and on about this, how much space the dogs should have so they don't get too cooped up. He says, there should be one door in front and one door behind, and a fair green, where the sun shineth all day from morning till eve. And the hinder door of the kennel should always be open, so that the hounds may go out to play when they like. For it is a great liking to the hounds when they may go in and out at their pleasure.
It sounds like the farm that we send Bonnie when we go on holiday.
It is really, really sweet. And he talks about, like, how you should, you know, tilt the floor of the kennel so that, like, all of the dirt and, like, dog pee runs out to the side. It's
a good rule.
Yeah, exactly. He talks about where the kennel should be in your house. So he says specifically, like, you should choose a place that is situated, like, in your house so that it's close to the kitchen so the dogs stay warm, but not so close that they're too warm, and they should have ventilation. So he's going, like, on and on and on about dog care, making it very clear that, you know, you should be pampering these dogs, which, again, is just...
It's very endearing.
It is very endearing. And one of the things that I really like as well is he says you should appoint a young boy from your household to be in charge of the dogs, and he should have to sleep in the kennel to make sure that if anything happens, he's there to, like, alert you, you know?
You there, dog boy.
If one of the dogs is, like, having a nightmare, you know?
Gotta go and lie down next to it and stroke its tummy.
No, literally,
Yeah.
literally. Yeah, so he's like...
Tried
you
and
know,
tested method.
and he literally says, like, make sure you get the boy young enough that, like, you know, you can sculpt him to be a good dog caretaker.
How young?
I think he says 8 years old.
That seems too young to be... like, you wouldn't let somebody take care of their own pets at that age.
Yeah, wait, let me see if I can find where he says this, because it is very funny.
I like him as a character.
He says, thou that would teach a man to be a good hunter, first he must be a child, past 7 or 8 years of age, or little older. For if any man would say that I take a child in too tender age for to put him to work, I shall answer that all nature shortens and descends.
Ain't that just the way?
Yes.
I need my boy to learn dog before he learns English.
For every man knoweth well that a child of 7 years of age is more capable in these times of such things
Than a baby?
that he liketh to learn than was a child of 12 years of age.
Oh, right.
In times that I have seen. So he's basically saying, like, you know...
Teenagers are lazy.
He's saying teenagers these days especially are lazy. So you need to get them young. So they don't get too distracted by their, I don't know, medieval iPad.
Their wax tablets.
Yeah, exactly. Make sure your children don't discover, I don't know, fucking taverns.
Fortnite, which is a well-known text about conquering a fort at night.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, and he says, furthermore, from this child, many things are required. First, that he love his master, and that his heart and his business be with the hounds. And he must take and beat him when he will not do what his master commands him, until the time the child dreads to fail. So he's saying just beat a love of dogs into an 8-year-old boy, and make him sleep in the kennel. Bada bing, bada boom, you're on your way to being a hunting legend.
I'm pretty sure I did read that in Jordan Peterson, so I think...
Yeah. No, it is.
My theory is gaining credence.
But he says, that you have to teach him to clean out the kennel, make sure to sweep it out every day in the morning, give them fresh, clean water twice a day, have some kind of enclosure where he can take the dogs once a day, and yeah, sleeping in the kennel is, like, so important to him. So yeah. Make sure he's sleeping in that kennel.
Keep him warm with all of those farts.
Yeah, basically. Oh, God. You just know it's stank in
Oh,
there.
God. No, because they don't have dog shampoo.
No, they definitely do not.
If they did, he'd have a line that's like, and remember, he must only use dog shampoo for volume.
Exactly. Volume and shine. But, I mean, yeah, when you read, like, what this guy's he gives some, like, statements about what dogs are like in general. And, like, this guy takes dogs so seriously. I mean, he says, and first of their noble conditions that be so great and marvellous in some hounds, there is no man can believe it, unless he were a good skillful hunter, is that a hound is a most reasonable beast, and best knowing of any beast that God ever made.
Absolutely not my experience.
He just says some dogs. He says some dogs.
Because I was going to say that the word that when Bonnie was a young pup, the word that was used about her most frequently was willful. She has a lot of.
Yeah.
She has a lot of. I don't know about Bismarck.
Bismarck is pretty willing, to be honest.
I was going to say, because, like, Bonnie has opinions about things.
Oh, Bizzy does not. Bizzy has opinions about, hiding, which is that it's good. And being quiet, which is that it's also good.
No, Bonnie knows what she wants to do of a day. She'll make it known to everybody.
Oh, what a character.
She is a character.
But yeah, he does, he does reiterate over and over again that, like, men and their dogs are getting worse. And so this whole sort of, manifesto is also a diatribe that's like, it's also like an invective that's like,
We have to return.
Yes,
to real dogs.
To real Havandus.
Your stable boy, your kennel boys are too old.
Yeah. So yeah, he says, nevertheless, natures of men and all beasts go ever more descending and decreasing, both of life and of goodness and of strength, as the Earl of Phoebus saith in his book, that when he see the hounds that be now hunting, and thinketh of the hounds that he hath seen in the time that is past, truly he saith there is no comparison.
No one hunts like Gaston.
Literally. But yeah, I really like, and I've posted this quote on Twitter before, about the...
You mean X the Everything app?
Shut up. A hound has a great memory and great smelling. A hound has great diligence and great might. A hound is of great worthiness and of great subtlety. A hound is of great lightness and great perseverance. A hound is of good obedience, for he will learn as a man all that a man will teach him. And he goes on and on. Hounds are hardy. Hounds are full of good sport. Blah, blah, blah.
They're just chill. No, that's the thing about dogs, is they're just your boys.
Yeah.
They're always up for a raucous adventure.
No, definitely. And so, but it is also clear that this is a practical guide, because he goes into excruciating detail about different illnesses that your dog could have and what the cures are. If your dog's tail is wagging, up and down instead of side to side, like, give your dog 3 ounces of, I don't know, crushed ginger root or whatever.
Is that what he says, or whatever?
Yeah, that's what he says. Verbatim.
Never in danger, waileth our fathers, free and undaunted, make salt our renown.
And this book, The Master of Game, goes on and on and on about all of the niche intricacies of hunting, about, the right procedure by which you should gather your men to the hunt, how you should choose which trail you're going to follow, which kinds of dogs you should use at what time, what kind of weapons are okay, what kinds of animals should be hunted with specific weapon, and on and on and on. It is really just unbelievably thorough and systematic. And this is a big part of where we get a lot of these dog breeds from, and a lot of these ideas of having different dogs for different purposes, because over the course of the Middle Ages, hunting changed massively, and hunting has long been something that's culturally important in ancient Rome and ancient Greece. Hunting was also idealized. There are a lot of artistic motifs that incorporate hunting, but in the High Middle Ages, they kicked it into unbelievable overdrive.
Well, they became nerds about it.
They became nerds about it because you can't always be at war. So if you're not at war, how can you show off that you're a manly man, and a noble man?
Get good at football.
Yeah, I wish. If only we had, like, the same, just unbelievably specific niche terminology about football that we did about hunting.
Are you fucking kidding me?
No, you don't know, like, exactly how specific this gets. I mean, we're talking about, like, having words for, like, I don't know, what happens when the goalkeeper jumps left but the ball goes right, But it has to be, like, a niche French word.
Oh,
it has to
right.
be, like, a foreign import, Like, oh...
And not just he choked.
Yeah, exactly. Not just he choked. It has to be like, he just committed I don't know, misballery or whatever, Fuck it, I don't know. My point is hyper-specific, hyper-niche, because hunting really evolved as a form of pageantry and performance. And one of the ways in which you could demonstrate your status and your nobility to the other members of your community to your peers, was to just, become basically it was like an arms race almost. And just, whoever had like more niche, hyper-specific knowledge about what the proper weapons are to use and what the proper words for each animal in each stage of its life is called, that's how you demonstrate that you're, the top dog. And so it's from this era, the High Middle Ages especially, and later as well, the High and Late Middle Ages, that we
The
get...
age of frippery.
Yeah, exactly. That we get a lot of our very specific English words about game animals and about wildlife. So for instance, stags and does, the idea of having different words for different genders of animals and for animals as babies. So, fawn, you got a fawn, and then you've got your stag and your doe.
My favorite one is pigs.
Yes.
Or boar, I should say.
Yes, absolutely.
Until a boar is 10 months old, they are a squeaker. And then 10 to 12 months, hyper specific window, they are juvenile. Then, when they are 2 years old, they become a pig of the sounder. Then you have boars of the 4th, 5th, or 6th year. Yes, I mean, you can guess what that means. Then you have an old boar, which is 6 years old. And then a grand old boar is any boar over 7 years.
Yeah, and I have no idea whether these specific ones are medieval, but this is very much in the medieval tradition of assigning hyper-specific words to animal-related things. And it's also from this era that we get words for the meat that comes from animals that is different to the name of the animal, which is not something that exists in most other languages. So we've got, for instance, venison is deer, and pork is pigs, and beef is cows, and so on. And what we see is that these are often animals, the animals that have this type of hyper-specific vocabulary are generally game animals. They're animals that are hunted. There's hyper-specific rules about different kinds of birds of prey that you can use in falconry. There's rules even about how women can hunt.
They let you do that?
Yeah, women.
That's very progressive of us.
Hunting was definitely seen as an acceptable pursuit for a lady, but only if she did it in a way that was seen as befitting of a lady. And so, for instance, whereas for men it was seen as being somewhat disgraceful for a man of the nobility to hunt with a bow and arrow as opposed to a spear, because, you want to be getting up close and personal with the boar. For ladies, it was seen as, would have been seen as extremely improper to use a spear, but very proper to use a bow. And you could hunt with birds, but only if, I forget exactly, there was one specific type of bird that was seen as appropriate for women to use, because it was like the smallest bird of prey. And we have plenty of examples in medieval art of women hunting as well, with their dogs and with bows and with their falcons.
Girls' day out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so it was all part of this, again, highly complex system. And I would even argue that it became so complex over time that actually just writing about these things and talking about them became its own kind of proxy for hunting, completely detached from the act of hunting itself. And that's where we get a lot of these hunting guides from and hunting manuals. To the point where it even became like a little bit of a game. Like medieval noble almost started to take the piss a little bit, because I think they realized how arbitrary this system of categorization was getting. And so we have
You mean that it's not rational to have a separate name for a pig that's 12 months old versus 13 months old?
And so, for instance, as well, a lot of the collective nouns that we have nowadays date back to Middle English, because it became like a little bit of a trend to like coin new terms that you could use in describing like hunting and animals. So for instance, a pride of lions, or a murder of crows, or a business of ferrets. or a labor of moles. And
Oh, that's
so
my personal favorite.
I really do like a labor of moles. And
It's very Wind in the Willows.
it is. And what you can notice about these terms is that they are all very apt, right? They all refer to some attribute of the animal or perceived attribute, and that's because these were coined deliberately by someone who was like, what's a good word for a lot of ferrets? Well, those guys look busy as heck. Let's use that. But then it got, more and more sort of detached from the original purpose of the exercise, and so we ended up with documents that list collective nouns for different types of people. So, in fact, I know you like a little game. Let's see if you can
I love a game.
guess the collective nouns.
And everybody can play along at home as well.
Yes, please do. So we've got, let's see. Let's start you off easy. What's the collective noun for a group of hermits?
An isolation.
An observance.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
Okay, how about lawyers?
A nuisance.
An eloquence.
That's flattery right there.
How about jugglers?
Oh no, that is a nuisance of jugglers.
No, it's a worthlessness of
Oh
jugglers.
God, I was so close.
So close. And how about harlots?
We've actually talked about this on the podcast before, and I forgot.
It's a herd of harlots.
Who's gonna feed them hoes?
Yeah, and so I think there's no doubt that these words were not written down with the intention that they would become widespread.
hunting herds of lawyers.
Yeah, exactly. But again, this was just its own kind of cultural artifact of the era, and again, some of them do survive to the present day. In fact,
Parliament of Owls.
Parliament of Owls. I don't know if that one is medieval, actually, but it might be.
No, but my point is the tradition continues.
Oh yeah, the tradition absolutely continues. There's actually a whole document full of them that have been found in medieval sources. So I will link that in the description because it's very good. And then, okay, sorry, I'll bring this bit to an end.
No, this is great.
Yeah, it is good fun. And to return briefly to Edward, Duke of York, one great addition that he made to Gaston Phoebus's original hunting manual was he wrote down a list, and I think to me this is the pinnacle of medieval hunting culture. He wrote down a list of over 1,000 names for dogs.
Yes.
That you could give, and not just names for any old dog, but he categorized them. He said these are names for spaniels, these are names for greyhounds, these are names for mastiffs.
Oh, I need some.
And he gives, names for males and females in each of these categories. He gives some general. So, for instance, here are some names that he recommends specifically for greyhounds. Sorry. Achilles, Albertine. These are alphabetical. Hurl. Craig Bosta. Clubber.
It's my beautiful dog, Clubber.
Yeah, no, literally. Gripe. Grimbold.
Yeah!
Musket.
Oh, I like that.
Make it good.
Make it good!
Rumbelow.
Rumbelow!
Rowland. Sweepstake. Stanchabosta. Spare not. Stikefast. Strikeland. Tully Mully.
Oh, that's nice.
Thought.
That's profound.
Trinket.
Feels vaguely patronizing, that one.
Vengeable.
Vengeable!
And then he's got, separately to greyhounds, grey bitches' names. So here's if you have a female greyhound.
Keep going. I'm a child.
Gigalot.
Is it fair?
Floozy.
Okay, this is getting slightly misogynistic.
Oh yeah, it's the 15th century, Aaron. None. Pincher. Tapister.
See, that seems fair. That one's not misogynistic.
Belle.
Oh.
That one's nice.
Yeah.
Kira.
Wow. See, that's a very modern sounding name.
Galentine. I like that one a lot, actually. And Eglantine he gives as well, which I really like.
Galentine's Day.
Wench.
Oh, right back in there with the misogyny.
All right, I hope you guys are ready for more dog names because
Yes.
we're not even close to
No,
halfway
you're looking
through.
you're looking at the scrubbing thing at the bottom of your podcast app, trying to figure out how much more of this
Yep.
audio is going to be dog names. All of it.
I know. I love
Keep
it
it coming.
so much. So yeah, let's see. He's got specific names for terriers.
Yes.
You can tell, and here you can really see that like the image of the small dog as being like extremely irritable really comes through. Because he's got for terriers argument, arguer, brawler, crabby, creeper. Let's see. To be fair, he's got fellow as well,
Oh, okay.
which I think is nice. For terriers, juggler, jolly boy,
AJB.
yeah, little man, little boy,
Oh, so good.
mustard, quarrel.
Again with the arguments.
For terriers, he also gives pretty man and pretty boy, petite and prat as well.
These are my beautiful dogs, Petite, Pratt, and Pretty Boy.
For terriers, he also gives Terry, which I think is great.
Terry the Terrier.
He's like, yeah, name your terrier Terry. So yeah, that's lovely. And yeah,
More dog names.
and let's see. And here's a lightning round of just
Okay.
some of my other favorite ones. Best of all,
Yeah.
bragger, blamer, bonifant, boner.
Oh, come on. Yo, this dog's called Boner. It's so funny.
Let's see, caraway.
That's cute.
That one is cute. Crampet. Chopper. I really like that one.
Chopper
actually.
is good.
Charlemagne.
These are my dogs. Crampet and Charlemagne.
That would be, you have to admit, that would be good. Changeable. A lot of these probably like have some specific Middle English meaning that is lost
Yeah.
on me, like drugman, dudman, doucheman. He does just give for one of them danger, which I think is actually amazing. Someone please give your dog one of these names.
I need this to be edited together into like a "We Didn't Start the Fire"
Yes.
style song.
Freeman, Gaylord, good now. I don't actually know what that is. But yeah, Freeman and Gaylord are a couple that he gives as well. Oh, here's some more terrier ones I missed. Feet and Filth. Florentine, Franklin.
Again, a very modern sounding name.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay. Yeah, Housewife is a great one. Honeydew and also Honeyball.
Honeyball is that's stuck with me for like a year.
I
since
know.
first found it.
We've got Hurlebuck, Lincoln, Liberal, Labor.
Oh, I see we're in the political section.
Here's some female dog names. Colette.
Okay, yeah, that's normal.
Nightingale is another female one. Nurture, which I think is very sweet. Mary as well.
See, they give all the dogs like girl names, and then the boy dogs are like Battle Ball.
Let's see. Oh god, there's just so many good ones. I'm sorry if you don't mind. I'm reading so many out.
No,
They're
this is
good.
great. This is what people come to us for.
Yeah, let's see.
I don't know why we make effort when we could just read things.
Back onto male dog names. We've got Pilate, like Pontius Pilate, which is amazing. Wait, okay, he's got Rude Enough, Ribald. We've got Quentin, very nice one.
Yeah.
And we've got Reverence, which is also very sweet. Robinette, Ready Man, Sergeant. He's got like a lot of military ones, which makes sense.
What I love about this is that every time you say one of these names, I have an image of a dog that just flashes into my mind unbidden.
Yeah.
That is like what that dog would be.
I know. Oh, we've got Sufferance, Salmon, Sextant, Sojourn, Sinful. Garlic is one of my favorite ones. Turk. Tailwise. I really like Tailwise.
Tailwise.
Vagrant.
Vagrant, get over here.
Wise Man. Warner. Wise Dome as well, actually. Wilmot. Waist Pain.
Waist pain.
Christabel. Yolanda. Those are some female ones.
Have you
I'll
got
leave
this out of your system?
I'll leave it for that. I've got it out of my system, but I
Okay.
hope you enjoyed that deep dive. I've lost the thread at this point, but I think the point
I don't even know my own name anymore.
I know. Okay, well your new name is Stykefast. But I think the point I was getting at was, again, just very, very arbitrary, all of these sort of systematics that were introduced and very much couched in this need amongst the nobility and the royalty to have a way of demonstrating, no matter what time of day it was, what country, where you were, whether you were at war or not, whatever. This is how you demonstrate that, like, you mean business and you're noble.
So he has an awful lot to say about dogs. I think we can agree that. He doesn't have that much to say about cats.
He has a few choice words, I would say.
Yeah, would everybody like to hear what he says about cats? Of common wild cats I need not speak much, for every hunter in England knows them, and their falseness and malice are well known. But one thing I dare well say, that if any beast has the devil's spirit in him, without any doubt it is the cat, both the wild and the tame.
Brutal.
Yeah, that's right. So let's talk about cats.
So yeah, I mean, despite the stereotype that a lot of people have that cats were universally reviled and massacred at every possible opportunity in the Middle Ages, we know that not to be true necessarily, but that does not mean that cats were beloved either, I would say.
This is sort of a spiritual sequel to or tying up a loose end, I would say, from the witches episode, which is that the idea of cats being associated with the devil long predates the image of the witch.
Yeah.
Because cats are weird. I don't know if you've ever hung out with one. They're strange.
If you've listened to our episode about animals in general in the Middle Ages, in which we talk about wild animals quite a bit, one of the ideas we draw out there is the medieval idea that animals were created by God as part of this divinely imagined system, in which, of course, humans are at the top, and the animals all have a role that fits into the ultimately human-governed world. And so it is really important to remember that people in the Middle Ages really thought, I think, of animals, that sort of archetypes of animals, the noble hound versus the duplicitous cat, these were very deeply entrenched in medieval culture. And so in bestiaries, you have all of these different stories about the virtues and the vices of these animals. There's a bestiary story, for instance, that you see in quite a few of these texts explaining that dogs will always recognize the murderer of their master if their master is killed in cold blood.
Whereas cats will just kill him.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas cats are just evil.
Cats will eat him.
Exactly.
They're not a pet. They're a guy that lives in your house.
Yes, very much so. And they're not, cats we're not status symbols. There aren't, even now, like, there are different breeds of cats, but, like, on the inside, all of the cats are the same.
Yes.
There's no evidence that any of these cats are, like, different. People are like, oh, orange cats, tabby cats. It's like, no, all of these cats are the same.
They have the same personality.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is that, because I think, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I think that dogs as social animals, it is much easier to project a personality onto them because the baseline personality of a dog is just closer to the personality of a human.
Yeah, exactly. And because they're very responsive to human
Yeah.
emotions. Cats aren't.
Well, cats can be, but like in very like even when they are, it's in a sort of vaguely unhelpful way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, cats know how you feel because they want to make you feel worse.
Yeah, they know how you feel. They just don't give a shit. No, I'm being facetious. I have had a cat. I have had a cat before and had a very close relationship with that cat. But it was still the kind of relationship that you have with a cat, which is basically just like a roommate.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
And you can really care about your roommate, but at the end of the day, you want him to do the fucking dishes.
Cats don't do the dishes.
No, but that's my point. It's a transactional relationship.
I know. Yeah, and so in medieval culture, in art especially, like, you have motifs that you see over and over again of dogs hunting, dogs in the countryside with peasants that are part of this idealized image of pastoral bliss. The dog has a role to play in this idealized medieval world, whereas you don't see cats quite as much. And often when you do, you get them in the margins, detached from any main coherent scene. Oftentimes the cats exist as like a little inversion or commentary on social norms. And so starting, especially in the High Middle Ages, I would say there are some sources telling us about the negative associations that people had with cats in the Middle Ages.
Yes, so like Walter Mapp, who longtime listeners of the show remember from the Vampires episode, and his wonderful book, Courtier's Follies. Sorry, Courtier's Trifles, which is, it's just a collection of things that he's written down. A significant number of which are just invective about Welsh people. Mm-hmm. He was Welsh, so I find that a very odd thing for him to choose to write. He said he associates cats with devil worship. So he says, "The devil descends as a black cat before his devotees. The worshippers put out the light and draw near the place where they saw their masters. They feel after him, and when they have found him, they kiss him under the tail." Now, eagle-eyed listeners will know what is under a cat's tail.
Indeed.
Yeah. Guess what? Martin Luther didn't invent the scatological associations with the devil.
Yeah. No, absolutely not.
Quick sidebar on Martin Luther. He was a big fan of dogs.
Yeah.
He said, "Be thou comforted, little dog. Thou too in resurrection shall have a little golden tail."
Aww.
So Martin Luther thought all dogs went to heaven.
Aww.
Yeah, that's right.
Aww.
It's pretty nice.
That's really sweet. I like that.
Which is very uncharacteristic for Martin Luther, because he was mostly just telling people to kill themselves.
I mean, one thing that my parents have told me time and time again, and they live in Germany, is that since getting a dog, it has opened up like a new side of Germans and German culture to them. Because my parents live in Berlin.
Oh.
And before they got a dog, they would always talk about like how everyone in Berlin is mean, people are evil, they're callous, they don't care about you.
This has been my experience.
And when they go out with that dog, everyone is your friend.
Oh mein Gott, you have ein kleiner Hund. Ein schwarzer Hund.
Yeah, ein schwarzer Hund namens Bismarck. And then the Germans are like, wait, what? That's problematic.
Are you a racist?
Yeah. Racist, I think you'll find.
So William Caxton in the 15th century picks up on this in his royal book and says that the devil playeth oft with the sinner like the cat doth with the mouse. So there's a general cultural association of cats with devilry, either in their personality or just sort of as a physical manifestation of the devil.
But I think it's also important to recognize that this is not the whole picture. I mean, if every single person in medieval Europe hated cats, then they wouldn't have kept them around.
There wouldn't be cats.
Exactly. So I think it is... I think something that we are trying to draw out here is that this cat-dog dichotomy that we often think about today was very much alive and kicking back then as well. But there were just as there were some negative associations with dogs, there were also some benefits to cats. And so, for instance, although dogs were very much hunting hounds, especially part of this exercise of displaying status, for those people who didn't want to display their status, a dog would not be an appropriate pet at all. Especially because dogs can be noisy, they can be demanding, they are not very independent. These are all things that do not apply to cats, on the other hand. And so...
Yeah, they can be pretty demanding. But 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Well, like, when you look at a dog and a cat, it's like, if I released both of these animals into the wild, one of them would survive, one of them would not. And so, in particular, for monks and nuns and occasionally other members of the clergy, cats kind of became like the quintessential clerical pet because, they're quiet, they're independent, they have a scholarly vibe. Like a cat will chill and keep you company while you copy down your tomes.
They like looking at things and not moving for an extended period of time, which is a very important part of any scholarly lifestyle.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And so a lot of our best sources about cats in medieval Europe come from clergy and from scholars. And so I think one of the most famous examples of this is the 9th century Irish poem Pangur Ban, which was written by an Irish monk in Germany. And this is just a nice little poem about a scholar and his cat. And so here is an English translation. It opens with, I and Pangur Ban, my cat, 'tis a like task we are at. Hunting mice is his delight. Hunting words I sit all night. Better far than praise of men, 'tis to sit with book and pen. Pangur bears me no ill will. He too plies his simple skill. So in peace our task we ply, Pangur Ban, my cat, and I. In our arts we find our bliss. I have mine and he has his. So he's also comparing himself to the cat. But it's a really, really cute poem that was basically just like scrawled in the margins of someone's notebook. And I also want to call attention to the name Pangur Ban.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a great follow-up from our last episode about textiles. Because I believe Pangur Ban means white fuller.
Oh.
Fullers are the people that are responsible for like felting the finished fabric.
Oh.
And I'm actually gonna grab a blanket and do some demonstration.
Oh, yeah.
In order to, and this was the 9th century before fulling had been automated. And so back in the day, in order to felt your fabric, you would take it and you would knead it. Mm-hmm. So ostensibly this is a cat that's named because he likes to knead fabric.
Oh, he does the biscuit
Yeah,
thing.
so his cat is like named White Biscuit Maker. Yeah.
That's very cute.
Isn't that sweet? I know.
That's very cute.
I really do love that. And in fact, there are medieval advice books for the clergy that say that cats are the only acceptable pets that you should have, or companion animals, rather. And so I think, it is an interesting sort of other side to this dichotomy. It's really like a quadrotomy or something. Because dogs, I think, could also be seen in that context as being very frivolous and very worldly creatures. I mean, there are also negative associations with dogs in the Bible, for instance. There's a proverb that says that just as a dog returns to eat his own vomit, so does man return to his folly. i.e. his sin. And so that's kind of the flip side of the medieval canine nature, is that they are also these kind of brutish, savage creatures. I mean, especially later on in the Middle Ages, as there develops a greater focus on like facial expression in the subjects of artwork, you get a lot of really good pictures of the persecution of Christ, often at the hands of Pontius Pilate, or the Roman soldiers, and often there is a dog sitting in the foreground, and often the dog's face very closely resembles the face of either Pilate or one of the Roman soldiers.
Oh.
And so it's kind of this, like,
Evil dogs.
scruffy, like, sneering face. So I think that's, this is, again, the flip side of it.
Staying, actually, in the Celtic world, the laws of Howlta, which were the sort of the law code of medieval Wales, I'm simplifying that enormously, have quite a lot to say about cats, and they also specify what a good cat should be. So the desirable features of a cat are as follows. It should be perfect of ear, perfect of eye, perfect of tail, perfect of teeth, perfect of claw, and without marks of fire, and that it should kill mice and not devour its offspring, and that it should not be caterwailing every new moon.
Aww.
It's very cute. They also do mention, though, that cats can be problematic, because later on in the law code, it does specify that whoever shall catch a cat mousing in his garden, let the owner pay for its damage.
Ooh.
Yeah. By the way, last reference to cats, because I did just, after finding that, I did just go and do a little, like, Control F search in the laws of Howlda for cat, and I just want to read you this delightful line out of context. 3 worthless milks there are: milk of a mare, milk of a bitch, and milk of a cat.
Wow. That's amazing. And yeah, I think, in general, it would be a gross oversimplification to say that everyone in the Middle Ages, or every culture in the Middle Ages, looked unfavorably upon cats, because it was very cultural. Celtic cultures, so Welsh, but also Irish cultures, I think especially earlier on in the Middle Ages, took a much more favorable view, and they also, have extensive legal codes about cats. In fact, there is an entire Irish legal text about cats, which I love, and it has as well a few different examples of names of cats. So
we can't do this again.
We've got ones like Mione.
That's nice.
Which just means like meower. The kind of like generic cat name in medieval England, the same way that you might think of like Fido as a generic dog name.
Which, by the way, quick sidebar, what does Fido mean?
It comes from Latin fidelis, so
yes,
faithful.
Exactly.
Well, would you like to know do you know the generic English cat name?
No, I don't.
Gilbert.
Which means...
Gilbert. It's just a name. Gib for short. I think a lot of them were called Gib.
Gib.
Yep.
Give me that fucking...
I know.
Give me that fish back.
No, exactly. So, and Tybalt as well was like a common cat name.
Yes. Tibby.
Yeah. And I think maybe the elephant in the room at this point, if you're like a medieval cat scholar, is the fact that to the east of Europe, there was also an extremely different culture. Outside of Christian Europe, I think there were very different cultural perceptions of cats that created a very different sort of place for them in society. And so what I'm talking about specifically is cats in medieval Islam.
Yes.
Because they don't like dogs as much.
No, because dogs are smelly and weird.
Yeah, in fact, this is a post-medieval, but there was a quote from a traveler, a Western European traveler to, I believe, Constantinople, who said, they're cat people and we're dog people.
I've been over there. It's kind of true.
Yeah, I think that sums up the culture very well. There's also some really good poems from medieval China about cats as well.
No way.
Which I want to mention very briefly. There's a 12th century one that is basically like a man complaining about how useless his cat is. So it starts off by saying like, "Oh, you're my cat. I love you. You catch mice or whatever." And then like as the poem goes on, he's kind of like, "Okay, well maybe you don't actually catch that many mice." And then it gets flat out like, defamatory by the end.
He's nagging his cat.
This is an English translation. He says, "I do not reprimand you for not catching mice. I still serve you fish on time. Every day I see you sleeping without worry. So for what reason do you keep running here and there? Night after night you used to massacre rats, guarding the grain store so ferociously. So why do you now act as if you live within palace walls, eating fish every day and sleeping in my bed?" And so, yeah, going back to the medieval Muslim world, we actually find cats like baked into the scripture from pretty early on.
Not literally baked in.
No, not baked in. They were not doing that.
That is strongly disapproved of in Islam.
And so, yeah, this goes all the way back to the Prophet Muhammad, who, according to quite a few hadiths being essentially testaments or accounts of the Prophet's actions and words.
The sayings of the Prophet.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, according to many of these, the Prophet was a cat lover and condemned the hurting and killing of any cats. And there's one cat in particular named Muetza, or Muezza. So there's one hadith about the Prophet dressing to go to his morning prayers, but he discovers Muetza asleep on the sleeve of his robe, and so rather than wake the cat up, he cuts off the sleeve of his robe so the cat can keep sleeping. There's a companion of the Prophet whose name was Abu Huraira, which is a nickname that literally means father of kittens. And this is because of the apparent attachment that this guy had to his cats. So there is another hadith about one of Abu Huraira's cats saving the Prophet from a venomous snake, and allegedly as a gesture of thanks, the Prophet stroked the cat on the forehead, leaving behind the sort of
the
M-shaped lines, which,
which many cats have.
Exactly. And so there are also some versions that claim that it was at this moment as well that he bestowed all cats with the ability to land on their feet. In some versions as well, the cat bows to the Prophet. And actually, all over the medieval Muslim world, there are first-hand accounts about just like people saying, "Oh, this place is absolutely full of cats."
Listen, I've been to Istanbul. You cannot move for them, including outside the mosques.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a Flemish man in the 15th century who wrote about a cat hospital/shelter in Damascus. And there was an English visitor to Cairo in the late 19th century who wrote about a place that was called a cat garden, which was a garden where things were to be grown, then sold, and the money should be used for taking care of the city's cats. And apparently this dated back to a 13th century Mamluk Sultan. And this law had just been going strong for 600 years. And this English guy writes about like how pissed off the Chief Justice who was responsible for this was, and that he would just wake up every day and be like, I gotta go take
fucking
care of these stupid cats.
These fucking cat garden.
So, and yeah, there's just, again, so many more stories than I could possibly go into. In what is now Iran, there was allegedly a prince who had a pet cat that he loved so much that petitioners, his subjects who wanted to get him to like listen to them, would write their notes down and attach them to the cat's neck. Like tie notes to his collar to be like, I need you to resolve this marital dispute immediately.
Please, I need my dowry.
There was also apparently a Sufi sheikh who had shoes made for his cat so that the cat's claws wouldn't snag his prayer rug.
See, cats traditionally hate that.
Oh, definitely, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, the cat probably wasn't pleased, but, you know, and, okay.
That cat's probably living a pretty good life. Anyway, so.
And, okay, I'll end this with one of my favorites. This is about the famous medieval Persian poet Hafiz, who was apparently embroiled in a bitter rivalry with another Persian poet, and they were fighting basically for like the attention and approval of the Shah. And
as one does,
this other poet, Imad, apparently had trained his cat to bow alongside him in prayer, which the Shah regarded as a miracle. And so Hafiz wrote a poem being like, you know, I feel like there could be other explanations for this. Maybe this cat is not fully Muslim.
Listen, all cats are just are like people. They are Muslim unless proven otherwise.
And he wrote a great and also extremely petty poem, basically like saying, oh, you know, you foolish songbirds are walking right into the cat's claws. One of many, honestly, amazing Hafiz poems, because he had quite a few just amazingly like ironic and satirical ones. He has a poem, I'll link a few in the description. He has one where he compares life to a game of chess that you lose to God.
Ain't that just the way?
And he also has one where he recommends, well, basically, this is a bit of life advice from him. Play a game with some children, extend yourself to a friend, sing a few drunken songs to your pets and plants. So he's like, get drunk with your houseplants and your dogs and your cats.
I think there's a real... I don't know, I find that weirdly touching.
It's extremely touching.
That's what life is about.
Yes.
It's like, I don't know, hang out with some kids.
Yes.
Get drunk and chill with your cat.
It's great.
That's what life's about.
Yeah.
Wow.
The cat people were tapped in.
We should do an episode about medieval Persian poetry.
Yeah, we should.
Because I actually have a lot of thoughts about it.
Oh, there's so much.
It's genuinely incredible.
Yeah.
Like, it's... No, focus.
Focus.
We need to... So, to return to the Christian world for a second, I want to talk a bit more about that ambiguity and that tension of cats as both maybe the devil, but also socially useful and potentially your friends. Because I think it speaks to the nature of cats. And I'm going to quote here now extensively from Irina Metzler, who wrote a very good paper about the sort of demonic associations of cats in the medieval mind. And she says that the cat stands at the threshold between the familiar and the wild. Cats were intruders into human society. They could not be owned. They entered the house by stealth like mice and were suffered because they kept the insufferable mice in check. This causes a kind of conceptual tension. While the cat possesses the characteristics of a good hunter, it is useful, but as long as it does, it remains incompletely domesticated. Mm-hmm. Heretics, too, in a transferred sense, are not completely domesticated, since by challenging orthodox thought and roaming freely hither and thither in their interpretation of religious beliefs, they resemble the bestiary definition of wildness.
Yes.
So the thing about cats is that, unlike dogs, they do their own thing.
Yeah. They're independent.
And that is why they are slightly sinister. Because if we think all the way back to our episode about medieval bestiaries, the sinister animals are the ones that don't work for us.
And if you think back less distantly to our episode about witches, you might recall that one of the points I made about like medieval ideas of salvation, how you guarantee that your eternal soul goes to heaven and is not tortured forever, is by being obedient. Right?
And what are cats?
Cats are disobedient. They're so disobedient, honestly. And so it is very much a projection of medieval Christian values and culture onto these animals.
Who can refuse
that brings me to, I think, the question that I have been dancing around this entire episode, which is, why do we project so much of ourselves onto these animals? Because we do. We've explored in this episode, like, we give them names, we give them little houses,
Yep.
like, we give them shoes.
There's another really good Persian poem about women, like, decorating their cats with, like, henna and seashells and stuff.
No, but, like, we make them people.
Yeah.
And partially that is because we live with them, and so we kind of feel a sense of kinship with them because we share a space, but also there's something else going on here.
Yeah.
Because, to come back to the modern world for a second, the science is pretty settled that spending time with domesticated animals has a physiological effect on people. It lowers the physiological, like, symptoms of stress, for example. It's just good to chill. The Persians figured this out 500 years ago.
Yep.
It's cool to chill with a cat.
Yep.
And get pissed.
Yep. There are, I should also mention, though, medieval Persian drawings of people getting drunk with their dogs, too.
Oh, yeah, of course. John Bowlby, who was a formative psychologist in the field of attachment studies, so why do people get attached to things and how does that happen, wrote that the acts of caregiving, the things that you have to do to keep a thing alive, whether that's a baby or a dog, build an interconnected set of behavioral systems, which then builds an emotional bond, right? And the thing is that cats and dogs, even cats, do need us. So we do have to do rituals to keep them alive. And in some ways, the relationships with pets do resemble paternal or parental relationships. So, I mean, fur babies is a very literally descriptive term.
Dog mom.
Yes, to quote psychologist Dr. Froma Walsh, in the way that children get caught up in the family system as peacemakers, as go-betweens, as sources of disagreement, the same happens with pets. They get, just by being around us, they get integrated into our social networks. Like, you know, Bonnie is just the fifth member of the family.
Yeah, she is.
She's just sort of there.
No, I'm sorry, she is the first member of the family.
That's true. And, like, people just talk to her. It's like, what do you think about this? But I would say there is something qualitatively different about pets, right? Because in the way that we relate to them, because animals have different capacities than humans do. Like, yes, you can have a caregiving relationship with a child, but on some level you know they're always going to eventually develop their own opinions and then bugger off. Dogs can't do that.
They can develop their own opinions, but, like, they will not bugger off.
No, and they will be overruled.
Yes.
If you are remotely good at owning dogs.
Yep.
And here's the important point. Children are also able to rationalize and explain human behavior from quite a young age. A dog doesn't know why the fuck anything is happening. Like, dogs are equipped to understand the following things about human relationships, right? Family dynamics, meal times, and going outside to have a good time. Other than that, they don't know what the fuck is going on. That is why, when a dog dies in a movie, it's devastating.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, you watch Marley and Me, as I have done to great psychological toll, and at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, they have to put the dog down. That dog doesn't know what's happening.
No, exactly. I remember thinking about this when I was really young, when I was watching Air Bud, and they have the flashback to when Air Bud was in Vietnam.
Wait, hang on, sorry, what?
No, I'm joking.
Okay. I haven't seen that movie. Man, those sequels get weird.
Yeah. I remember when they do Air Bud goes to Guantanamo Bay. Just kidding.
What do you mean, just kidding? Are you implying there's not an Air Bud sequel set in a CIA black site?
You just look so horrified.
Yeah.
A book that I read when I was in high school that I was kind of obsessed with was this nonfiction book about, and I've probably talked about this with you before, Soviet foxes.
I don't know if you have.
Oh my god, this was like so, as a former Warrior Cats child, this was so impactful upon me. This is about a Soviet era experiment that might still be ongoing in some capacity. That was a bunch of researchers working with foxes on fur farms. And what they did was they took the foxes, this started back in like, I think the 60s.
Oh, I know about this
70s.
independently from Radiolab.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's good stuff. What they did was they took different groups of foxes. Some of them were foxes that they selected because they were the foxes who were the least fearful of human beings. And some were foxes that were the most fearful of human beings. And they basically, bred these foxes, bred all of the less fearful foxes together with each other. And from their offspring, then chose the least fearful of humans among those, and so on, in this effort to basically see whether they could replicate the process of domestication that's already happened with dogs and cats. And this isn't something that you can do with every animal. I think famously, like, zebras, people have tried to domesticate those.
Never
and,
gonna happen. They're too mean.
They just do not have, like, the genetic predisposition for it.
Because you pick the friendliest zebra is still gonna fucking hate you.
Yeah, no, exactly. But notably, foxes seem to have this genetic predisposition to domestication, and so they saw that actually really quickly, like, within, I think, just a few generations, not only did the foxes that they were breeding become pretty tame from the get-go, but also they saw physical changes in these foxes. And oftentimes these physical changes took the form of features that they had as puppies being preserved into adulthood. So, for instance, floppy ears, or different color patterns, spots, rather than, say, the standard fox coloration. I think, like, tail wagging was another big one.
Oh my god.
And so basically, I think the link between the behavioral and the physiological effects still isn't fully understood, but the belief is that, like, these are very closely related genetic sort of expressions, such that when you select for one, you're selecting for the other. And so when we domesticated household pets like cats and dogs, we kind of put them in like a state of eternal childhood and eternal dependence on us.
Yeah.
And I think that's very much what they are to this day.
Yeah. And ultimately what they are is a child who can love you unconditionally. And I don't think... People are complicated, and it's very hard to love somebody unconditionally with a human brain. Mm-hmm. Even if you think you do, there is still some red lines.
Oh, yeah.
And so it is just very rewarding to care for something that loves you back unconditionally.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that maybe is like what upsets some people about cats, is that, they're just more willful.
They have a little bit of that wild spirit in them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But, look up some of the videos of these foxes, because they are unbelievably cute.
Oh, it's so
They
nice.
are so sweet. They are so cute. And especially in the medieval mindset, and really still, I mean, the Christian and especially the Catholic mindset of, the world and humans as being created by God intentionally in his own image when it comes to people. I think that really our relationships with our pets kind of mirror that, because we created them in our own image. We created them to have qualities that we found endearing and useful. And we created them, to serve our own purposes. And so I think, especially in the medieval eye, that the relationship that people had with their pets really affirmed this divinely ordained hierarchy.
And I think that one of the things that I find really striking about human nature that comes out of this story is that the the introduction of domesticated animals and then eventually pets was a transactional one. They did stuff for us that we couldn't do effectively ourselves, whether that was herding sheep or hunting mice. And then we stopped needing them for that. And yet we still took them with us into this new world of automation and industrialized farming where almost nobody works in agriculture globally. Nobody has big rooms full of grain that need to be taken care of, and yet we took our two little sidekicks, the dog and the cat, and we was like, no, you're coming with us. You're gonna get to experience what is for them essentially automated luxury space communism.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I find that quite touching.
It is.
We're not leaving you behind.
Roland's great spirit looks down on our standards, beckons us onward to victory.
Well, that's about gonna do us for this episode of the Weird Medieval Guys podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked hearing about all the weird animals, all the weird animal facts, and how we're basically just the same.
Exactly.
We just like hanging out with our animal friends.
And giving them funny names, crucially.
Yes, and if you liked this episode, there's a couple of things you can do. You must leave a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you're listening on Spotify, you can also leave us a comment, and we might just read it out like Olivia is going to do now.
Yes, thank you guys for all of your kind and lovely comments. I want to single out a couple in particular. Thank you to Herdinist, who wrote, I nominate Will Forte to play Heinrich Kramer in a limited run comedy series. I think we're both in agreement that is a
pretty
nomination
solid.
we like.
Yeah, a pretty solid get.
Yep.
Might have to put him in some old age makeup, but I'm all in favor.
And then Herdinist goes on to say, I will comment the entirety of my screenplay on the next episode. Stay inquisiting, Queens. I think we're waiting for it.
Yeah,
drop it any day now, please. And thank you to Eric Katz. Hope you liked this episode, Eric
Very
Katz.
appropriate, yeah.
Who said, so I've put WMG on my English as a foreign language students' recommended listening list. Thank you, Eric. We are so glad to hear that, and we hope your students like it.
Can you imagine somebody's first encounter with, English language culture being this? What would that do to an impressionable young mind? Be worse than sending them to live with the dogs.
And Eric goes on to say, but I'm going to have to skip the one on textiles because there's hardly any weird medieval voices by Aran. So hopefully this one has remedied that. I could have done all the dog names in a silly voice, but Olivia wouldn't let me. She said it was, quote, it would be, quote, unlistenable audio. and I'd have to, quote, cancel the show in its entirety. He reached for the notes, but I barked and snapped at him.
And if you like the show and you want to be involved, then you can join the official Weird Medieval Guys Discord, which, as always, is popping off. It's just a nice community full of nice people talking about history and craft and art and all the nice things that we like.
Yeah. Please do join. We'll drop the link as well to join that in the description. And until then,
you can find me on Blue Sky at Aran, and not really on Twitter anymore.
Yeah.
It fucking sucks now for reasons that I'm not going to explain. But if you want to follow me there, it's at Aaron P. Tappers.
Excellent.
Just peruse my library of nonsense, preserved for all time.
Hell yes. And honestly, don't try to find me. Find yourself. I'm over being found on social media.
Just search Weird Medieval Guys.
Don't tell them that! Oh, God.
How do you think they found this?
I'll never get these people off my ass now.
Yeah, guess what? You're an internet celebrity, and there's nothing you can do about it.
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
All right, she's making non sequiturs. It's time to pack it in.
All right.
All right, well, until next time, Take it easy.
Peace and love.
Power of mercy, when the day is dawning, then I will pay my vows to thee.
Who's apparently the prophet's favorite, and there is one hadith about the prophet dressing one day to go to Mormon prayers and discovering his cat asleep. And
Olivia, I love this, but you did say Mormon prayers instead of
Mormon
morning.
prayers? Did I? Mormon prayers, that's right. Revisionist history.
They had Mormons in
Mormon prayers.
6th century Arabia.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, those missionaries get everywhere.
That's a sign I need more beer.
Yeah.